Hello, and welcome to Unit 4 of AP English. Overview. Students should enter this unit having learned to evaluate evidence to develop a thesis statement and organize an argument. Now the focus is going to shift to improving the quality, interest, and power of the argument by crafting introductions and conclusions that demonstrate a real understanding of the rhetorical situation. In addition, students will practice more with the modes of development. The setup of learning, we start out with our big picture, the enduring understandings. We go down to the skills for each enduring understanding. We unpack those skills to get the essential knowledge. And then we finish off with essential questions that the students should be able to answer by the time they've completed the skill and the unit. Our three enduring understandings are: individuals write within a particular situation and make strategic writing choices based on that situation. Writers make claims about subjects, rely on evidence that supports the reasoning that justifies the claim, and often acknowledge or respond to other possibly opposing arguments. And then finally, writers guide understanding of a text's line of reasoning and claims through the text organization and integration of evidence. The next skills for the unit are the first skills for the unit. Individuals write within a particular situation and make strategic writing choices based on the situation. The two skills, 1A and 2A. 1A, identify and describe components of the rhetorical situation, the exigence, audience, writer, purpose, context, and message. If this looks familiar, it's because it's the first skill we ever worked on, way back at the beginning of the year. Our new skill, 2A, write introductions and conclusions appropriate to the purpose and context of the rhetorical situation. So our essential knowledge, we're going to be working on building introduction and conclusions. We're going to try and understand that an argument introduces the subject and/or writer of the argument to the audience, and we're going to work on different ways that a introduction can be constructed. They can be used in such a way to orient, engage, focus the audience by presenting quotations, intriguing statements, anecdotes, questions, statistics, data, contextualized information, or introducing some kind of scenario. The conclusion, likewise, should bring an argument to a unified end. It might also present the argument's thesis, and it may engage or focus the audience by explaining the significance of the argument within a broader context, making connections, calling the audience to act, suggesting a change in behavior or attitude, proposing a solution, leaving the audience with a compelling image, explaining implications, summarizing the argument, or it can connect back to the introduction. Essential questions. How does the writer consider the rhetorical situation when crafting their message? How do the writer's choices in the text reflect both the constraints and the available means of persuasion within the text? How do the writer's rhetorical choices in the introduction and/or conclusion not only reflect their purpose and context, but also address the intended audience's needs and perspective on the subject? And finally, what is the relationship between your introduction and conclusion and your thesis? The next set of skills should also be familiar because we've already worked with them. Identify and describe the overarching thesis of an argument and any indication it provides of the argument structure. Write a thesis statement that requires proof or defense and that may preview the structure of the argument. As we unpack these skills, we see that what we're trying to do, though, is not just work on a thesis statement, but to see how a thesis fits within the larger structure of an introduction or conclusion. So our essential questions: how does the writer's thesis reflect their position and perspective? How does the writer's thesis preview their argument's line of reasoning? Where in the argument does the writer present their thesis, and why might they have chosen this particular placement? And how do you consider your perspective on the subject and narrow ideas to establish a position on the subject? Final two skills, completely new skills. Well, maybe not completely new, but partially new skills. Recognizing and explaining the use of methods of development to accomplish a purpose, and using appropriate methods of development to accomplish our advance in argument. And so, as we talked about in Unit 3, methods of development are common approaches writers frequently use to develop and organize the reasoning of their arguments. A method of development provides an audience with a means to trace a writer's reasoning in an argument. When developing ideas through comparison and contrast, writers present a category of comparison and then examine the similarities and/or differences between the objects of comparison. When analyzing similarities and/or differences, like categories of comparison must be used. When developing through definition or description, writers relate the characteristics, features, or sensory details of an object or idea, sometimes using examples or illustrations. Essential questions. Which method or methods of development does the writer select? How and why do they select those particular methods? Considering your line of reasoning, which methods of development might you use to develop your ideas and advance your purpose? How do you organize your ideas when using particular methods of development? Alright, these are the big ideas that we will be going over in Unit 4. And we have a couple weeks here in which we're going to get going with them. So let's get to it.